was half through drafting a series of resolutions he proposed to present to the Senate. With luck and persistence, maybe he could get them on the calendar as early as December. Senator Crittenden planned to ask fellow lawmakers on both sides of the slavery issue to make concessions. He'd proposed that the lines of the Missouri Compromise, setting a boundary between free and slave states, be made permanent. In return, he tried to persuade abolitionists to agree to put the full power of the federal government behind the support of slavery wherever it existed. It called for a lot of give and take. It would take some arm twisting, but it had a chance. Maybe. On Sunday evening, 41-year-old Thomas Crittenden walked to the Baptist church, arm in arm with his father. George sat on the front porch with his feet propped up, where everybody in Russellville could see him, and watched his relatives and neighbors trickle into the house of worship. George's defiant gesture, publicly repudiating his father's famous compromise effort, was a silent way of saying that he'd already made up his mind. Soon he acted. Back at the base, after having gotten leave in order to go home to vote, Lieutenant Colonel George Bibb Crittenden, U.S. Army, took off his uniform and folded it for the last time. He turned in his uniform, along with his resignation, and accepted appointment as a brigadier general in the Confederate Army. His younger brother took an opposite course. From his law office in Louisville, which he had left to return home to support his father, he sent out notices advising clients to seek other attorneys. He intended to join the state militia immediately, he said, and would only deal with cases already before the courts. Thomas Leonidas Crittenden was soon named Major General of Militia. He had hardly grown accustomed to his uniform before General Simon B. Buckner resigned to join the Confederacy. Thrust into the vacancy created by Buckner's resignation, Crittenden became head of the state militia. Soon he was named Brigadier General of Volunteers in federal service. Hot-headed George Crittenden, who became a Confederate Major General before the end of 1861, led 4,000 troops to defeat in the Battle of Mill Springs. Censured for a rash and unauthorized strike at federal forces, he was placed under arrest. That led to his resignation, but that did not end his loyalty to the CSA. For the duration of the war, the son of the Crittenden Compromise author was a civilian volunteer on the staff of General John S. Williams. His younger brother, loyal to the Union from start to finish, fought valiantly at Shiloh and Murfreesboro, Stones River. Advanced to the rank of Major General in the State Guard, Thomas Crittenden commanded the 21st Corps Army of the Cumberland at Chickamauga. Senator John J. Crittenden's sons were far from unique. Outbreak of civil war literally ripped states, counties, towns, and families, especially families, in two. It was a genuine war of brother against brother. Four of the brothers-in-law of the commander-in-chief of federal forces wore Confederate uniforms. Washington gossip spoke mournfully of the fact that the president's own household was split down the middle, with Mary Todd Lincoln termed two-thirds pro-slavery and the other secesh. Members of the Senate's Special Committee on the Conduct of the War seem to have considered bringing formal charges of treason against the First Lady. A surprise appearance by Lincoln and a formal statement from him declaring that no member of his family had ever treated with the enemy ended this cause célèbre. In dozens, if not hundreds, of other instances, brother versus brother meant combat participation on different sides. At Bull Run, Frederick Hubbard of New Orleans, Washington Auxiliary, saw his brother for the first time in at least 6, maybe 7 years. Henry, who wore blue as a member of the 1st Minnesota Infantry, had been wounded and carried to a field hospital. Soon, the empty bed next to him was filled by Frederick in gray, also wounded. Virginia-born General William B. Terrell was disowned by his father when the West Pointer decided to stick with the Union. Still, his mother-in-law managed to persuade and aid to General Winfield Scott to transfer Terrell to the far west as a safety measure, not for his personal safety, but to prevent the possibility that he'd meet his brother, CSA General James B. Terrell, on the battlefield. 4 of Henry Clay's grandsons fought for the South. 3 spent the war years in blue. At Chickamauga, the death of CSA General Ben Hardin Helm brought mourning to the White House. Helm's widow was a sister of Mary Todd Lincoln. Culp's Hill, Pennsylvania, named for owner John Culp, saw a homecoming during the Battle of Gettysburg. Sharp action around the hill involved both of Culp's sons, one wearing gray and the other wearing blue. Robert J. Breckinridge of Kentucky remained fiercely loyal to the Union. His nephew, for whom he was a guardian, became vice president of the CSA. Commodore Franklin Buchanan of the Confederate Navy was the first commander of the ironclad Virginia, or Merrimac. In one of its early engagements, the ship that helped transform naval warfare shattered the USS Congress, on which Buchanan's brother was an officer. Vicksburg, Mississippi was defended by Confederates under Pennsylvania-born General John C. Pemberton. He was defeated by Federal gunboats, one of which was commanded by his brother-in-law. At Hilton Head, South Carolina, Confederates at the strategic site had full confidence in their new commanding officer, Brigadier General Thomas F. Drayton. Even news that a powerful Federal squadron had reached Port Royal did little to change the mood of the men in gray. But Thursday, November 7th, 1861, saw big naval guns pound the earthworks of Hilton Head's Fort Walker. Outgunned Confederates were forced into hasty retreat and abandonment of their vital position. Much of the damage inflicted by Union guns came as the result of an officer's familiarity with the region. Commander Percival Drayton of the USS Pocahontas, a native of South Carolina, was in the forefront of those attacking the fortress over which his Confederate brother had charge. No mere figure of speech, brother against brother, is a verbal reminder that in the war called civil, no one really won. Family, sectional,